It's a race between the Luba Mini, and the Luba Mini. Ready, set, go! And the winner is Luba Mini. Let's get started.
It's that time of year again, it's time to cut the lawn. But this year I have a much bigger lawn to cut. I'm talking about 0.5 acres of lawn that I needed to cut, and hopefully we can do it in just one day. And we're gonna do that with this new series of Luba robots from Mammotion. A huge thank you to Mammotion for sponsoring this video. I'm going to show you some of the new upgrades that they've added and really dive in. But first, let's talk about what are the robots that we have here. So this right here is the Luba 2, which was my favorite robot lawnmower from last year. It was awesome. I only had one issue where it would get stuck if it didn't have a signal to the antenna, which that has been fixed and updated in these two that we'll talk about. But let me show you real quick. These are pretty big, pretty beefy. Down here we have a 15.7-inch cutting deck with these, I think it's 8 blades down there, but this is the new version of the Luba 2 where it has been upgraded. So looking at the bottom here, you can see that we have that same large cutting deck, but we now have 6 blades on each of these. So it's going to be able to cut through any length of grass, even if it's wet, it'll be able to cut through those. And then we have some other little features here. You have this nice orange on the side so that you know you have the latest model, and really big, beefy, awesome model. Then here we have the Luba Mini. So this is the newest one where you don't have as much of a yard to cut. It's going to be perfect for you, but it still has all the same great features. Now I've already unboxed these, got them set up pretty easy. All we need to do is install the vision module. Now as what this adds is the UltraSense AI. So it's going to automatically be able to see if there's objects in the way, as well as if it does lose that signal, it will be able to go around for about 1,000 feet of driving without connecting to the antenna and continue to work. So I think that's a huge upgrade to these models that it will be able to do that. And then another thing I'm really excited about, I'm always concerned about how close can it get to the very edge of the lawn, because I don't want to go around and have to re-trim the very edge. Well, this has a new edge feature that it will automatically position itself up against that to get as close as it possibly can. And that leads me to another new feature with these, is it has auto mapping. So once we start the mapping process, usually I have to drive around right behind it, use my phone as a remote control to tell it where to go, but it should be able to map the lawn. We're going to test it out to see if it is everything I hope for. Now on the Luba 2, I did have to add the bumper, and then here on the Mini, we have about a 7.8-inch cutting deck, and then we still have the 6 blades down here, and these both do come with extra blades when you need to replace them, but this is going to be a powerhouse. Now each of these models, there are actually different variations of models. So you have the high and the standard height, so how high it's going to cut, and then it's automatically able to change the height, which is really cool. So for the high version, that is 2.2 inches to 4 inches, and the lower version is 0.8 inch to I think 2.3 inches, something like that. And then you also have different zone range or size. So for a 0.75 acre, that's what this is, that's what's going to cover it. There's also a 1.5 acre model and a 2.5 acre model, and the main difference there is the amount of zones that it can set. So we actually are only going to do 2 zones here, but this could have up to 30 different zones programmed into it. The bigger model could have up to 100 different zones if you have an entire neighborhood that you need to mow with one robot mower. And then over here on the Luba Mini, there are 4 different models. You have the high and low, and then you have 2 different sizes. You have the 0.2 acre model or the 3.7 acre model. This is the 3.7 acre model, and the higher models might have a little bit bigger of battery as well, so a little bit more charging time. But the other difference between these two is here we have the RTK antenna. So this is pretty long, and this is what you need for it to be able to position itself on your lawn. The biggest thing about these antennas is they need to be 10 feet away from your home or a tree so that it has a solid signal. Now, if it needs to go under, like I said, at some point, it will be able to do that, but it does need to have that solid signal. Now over here on the Mini, you have a little bit different size of antenna. So one is you can change it like that, and you can mount it on the side of your house at the top so that it has a clear view of the sky. You don't need to worry about trees or the house. Or you can still mount this in the ground, just doesn't have as tall of stick here. And then it still needs to have that 10 feet away at least from the tree or the house. So that's going to be the biggest thing that we're going to check here to see where we can put this. But it does come with plenty of extension cord and a bunch of stakes. So you could actually put it, plug it into your power outlet by your house, and then route it into like your garden and put the wire on the ground, and it's going to be in the ground, so it's not going to be cut up or anything like that. So that's an option we're going to try out today to see if we can get that solid antenna signal. There's still more to talk about, but it's time to get these set up, mapped out, and start mowing.
There's the power to our Luba Mini right here. Now at the base station, you can then connect the antenna right to it. So there we have it, but it also comes with its own power. If you need to put the antenna somewhere across the other side of the house, there is a power cord specifically for that. So this is how we have it set up. Now this is not 10 feet away from the house, but we're going to test and see how this goes. So let's head into the app.
So here in the app, we just needed to connect the devices to our Wi-Fi. Once we have done that, it already knows where they are. Now we need to add the map. So we're just going to tap Create Map. And here it's going to talk about how to do this best, making sure everything is working and set up properly. We have already done all of that. And then here it's talking about the positioning of the RTK unit. Right now we are getting a good signal just this far away from the home, but it does need to be facing towards the sky. So that is all looking good. Now it says locate the charging station while the robot is charging. Do not stand in front of it. We got it. Hit next. Here we go. And now we're going to start the mapping task. Now there are two methods that we could map this. We could manually drive behind it, or we have the new auto mapping. Definitely going to try that out. Before we start auto mapping, please place the robot at the lawn perimeter. So we need to move it to the edge. And then during auto mapping, please follow the robot while maintaining a safe distance. To stop immediately, press the stop button. Okay, so I'm going to move it to a perimeter.
The front wheel lifted.
Like that, and start. And there we go. It is doing everything on its own. I'm not touching anything. I do have a stop button right here, and I could go to the manual mode if I need to. I love how close that is getting up to the edge of the lawn. And here on the phone, you can see a live map of what it has done so far, where the charging station is and everything. All right, so here it bumped into the concrete, and on the phone it did stop mapping, but I can go back to auto map and it's gonna try again. So here it's getting right up next to that edge so that it gets that super close cut. Quite a big lawn here. We're almost halfway through it, but it is doing great up along this edge. We do have the option where I think if you manually map it, we could go halfway onto the sidewalk and the grass to get that perfect edge. We'll try it up here in a minute. Over on this side, the sidewalk is higher, so it's not going to be able to go half and half, but here it's still doing a good job being right up next to it. Now it did happen to go up here, so at any time I can just simply push the controller here and it lets me manually control it, and I'm just going to back up. And then I'm going to start again, and here I have the controls right on screen where I can then do the turn. So this is the other way to manually do it. I really like that you have the option to do both. All right, let's finish up here with the automatic mapping. There we go, perfectly made it back to the beginning. We're going to save that zone. And now it has saved it. So there, right on the map here, we have this massive area that we are able to mow. And now there's actually all kinds of cool stuff that you can do with this. So first we can mow, we have a ton of options there, but you can also create, and you can then add more areas. We can create no-go zones. Maybe if there's a play area we don't want it to go around. We can create a channel. The channel will take it from one zone to the next zone, but then this is really fun. We have the option to create a pattern. So you can make it so it's not going to cut a certain area, and you can have it say something. You could have it be a soccer ball, a basketball, heart, all kinds of things. So I could place a basketball and right there take up most of the lawn at this big basketball. So lots of fun stuff that you can do there. So then on the main page here, we have the option to manually mow, meaning I can use my phone to remotely control it. I can go to the FPV view here. So right now you can see the live feed of me standing in front of the mower. So that's fun that you can watch while it's going. And then I have the option to drive it right on this mode too. But lots of fun stuff in the app. Let's go ahead, tap the mow button and get this lawn mowed. We now have the Luba Mini as well as the Luba 2 set up. In the app, it will show the RTK antenna as well as the robot. So here we can go in, we can tap, we can see device information, we could rename it. And then at the top here, we have this bar where we can tap and see how good the Bluetooth signal is, the Wi-Fi signal, and the positioning of the antenna. So everything is looking good. So that means we're ready to get mowing. So if we go here to the Luba Mini, if we tap on this, there are a ton of different settings, but I'm just going to show you about the mowing settings. So if we tap on mow, here we can select the different areas. This mower, we only have the one area. And then I can go in and adjust the default settings here. So we have cutting height, and I really like this little animation on here where I can then drag it down all the way to 2.2 inches or to 3.9. We're gonna go with 3.5 today, so keep it right there. Then we have task speed. So by default, it's set at 1, but we could crank this up all the way to 2 if you just wanna get the lawn mowed very quickly. It's gonna do a great job. So we're gonna play with those a little bit to see how faster it is on that higher speed. Then we have the optimal cutting path. So now it's just automatically going to mow depending on how the lawn is set up. So if you have some shorter widths, it's gonna go the longest way or the shortest way, it's gonna optimize. We also have the option to customize. Maybe you just want the entire yard to be going north and south or east and west, or we could change it to the other direction. And then you also have a random pattern, which is pretty cool. So we're gonna keep it on optimal for now. And then under more, we have a few other sweet settings here. Under the cutting path mode, you can do zigzag, where it's going back and forth, and that's just your pattern, or you could have it do chessboard. This is going to have it mow the lawn 2 times, both directions, and it's gonna have this really nice finish. You're gonna see the lines, it's gonna look good, and you can even change that cross pattern right here to whatever you want it set to. So we're just gonna keep it on the zigzag pattern for now. We'll test out the chess later. Then here you have perimeter mowing. So the robot will mow the inner perimeter of the lawn twice. So it's gonna go inside, but it's also gonna come all the way right to the edge 2 times. So it's gonna do as close as it can and then just in a little bit to make sure it gets all the edge there. Then we have the obstacle detection. So you can turn that off and it's just gonna go forward, and if it bumps into something, then it will stop. You have the standard mode where if it sees something, it's gonna slow down, navigate around it, and then you have sensitive mode where it's gonna try really hard to not bump into anything. If you do have a dead spot of grass, it might think that is not something it needs to mow, so just be aware of that. We're gonna keep it on standard, and then you can make sure the no-go zones are on, and then you could also start like halfway through the lawn with the start progress down here at the bottom. But that's pretty much it. Here you can see the total square foot. We have 4,607 square foot for here. And the time to mow, right now it says it's gonna take 236 minutes to mow this lawn, but we can increase that speed like I said. So then over here, we have the schedule where we can add that as well. But let's go ahead, start this, Luba 2 in the back, see how they run. All right, so for this, we are going to increase the speed to 1.6 because this is the Mini. And this is a pretty big lawn. It is gonna take a little bit longer. Smaller lawn, of course, is gonna be faster, but I think that looks good. Let's go ahead and hit mow. And here the Mini goes. Let's set up the Luba 2. And now with the Luba 2, we have a little bit more lawn to cover. We have 5,887 square feet. So if we mowed it right now at the 1 speed, it's gonna be 314 minutes, but we're gonna change that. We're gonna do both of these at 1.6.
The Luba 2 does have a path spacing option. This allows you to increase the path between each line. So the more you do it, the further it's going to be, the faster it's going to get done, the closer together, the more overlap you have, and the nicer the cut.
So here we have all the same settings, but we're going to keep everything else the same. And we're going to go ahead and mow, and then it's going to do a self-check. So it's going to make sure everything is running properly before it goes out. Now, one of my favorite things about these is how quiet they are. If you can hear right now in the background, there's some really loud noise pollution from the neighbor cutting their grass, but this is going to be super silent any time of the day. Now in the app, it's created a path that it can follow, so it's going to go to the beginning of that, and it's just going to drive along that path until it completes. And here on the Luba 2, we did play with where we were going to put the antenna, so you just need to find power. We had power there, and then we had the antenna cable that can come right off of it, and we tried placing the antenna even out in the middle of the garden, and it worked great, but we were getting the same signal even if we put the antenna RTK right here. So if we are having any issues, we may need to reposition it, but even right up next to the house, the rest of it over here is very open to the sky, so we were getting those 28 satellites, so this is going to work great. And here we can see the Luba 2 perfectly lining up with the lines that it has drawn out and what it is mowing. Then a few other things we have on screen is down at the bottom here. We can see what percent it's mowed, and then the remaining time, as well as how much it has used. And up at the top, you can see the total battery life, still at 93%. Kind of a difficult section here. Once it gets to something where it's a little more wide open, it's going to just cruise through that. Then over here on the side, you can click this button and it's going to navigate to where it is. We have the option to adjust the height live right here, the cutting height, and then we can change the task speed as well as the obstacle avoidance and see what other settings are set. And then we have this awesome option where we can do the FPV, and we can go in here and see how it is doing and pause it right here on screen, which is handy if you are noticing it may be close to an animal or something like that. And down here at the bottom, you have the option to pause it if you need to. And then here it's going to keep the same pattern from the beginning all the way to the end of the yard. And then once it has finished with the inside of the yard, it will do its final border, doing it 2 times around the outside to have a nice final finish. Now the new Luba 2 and the Luba Mini are able to go up an 80% slope or 38.6 degrees with these all-wheel drive tires. So it had no issue going up this hill. It handled it like a champ. Now one thing I've noticed, because the blades are not as long as a typical lawnmower, you can really see the nice cut here with the hill and how overall it is cutting. This is looking fantastic in this yard. With the Luba 2 almost being done, here is what it is looking like. It took the most time over in this like smaller garden area, very intricate, but over here had no problem. It is looking really nice. Love how it was able to mow this little hill without any issues, and it just looks so crisp because of that shorter cutting width that it has than a typical lawnmower. Once they charge up, we'll finish up and show the final result.
Start charging.
Now let's add another zone to the robot mower, so you can do this in your other part of your yard, your neighbor's yard, anywhere close that you have permission to do this. So we're going to go down here to map, and I have all the options down here, and the edit button is where you can go and actually adjust your map a little bit if it's off. But then we're going to go to the create for this. So here we can do a no-go zone, we can do a channel, and we can do a pattern, but we're going to go to the area section here. So tap on this. Please ensure the task area is clear of wires so that nothing is in the way. We're now going to drive the Luba 2 here, or Mini, whichever one you're using, into the new area. You can't start it inside another task area. So if they're really close together, you may need to just slightly move it so this is able to work. All right, we're going to start it right there. And now I have the option to start mapping the area. And we're going to do the auto map.
Start mapping a task area.
And here we go. And now we are back to the beginning. So once we reach the spot where we started, then it gives us the option to save the map.
Task area mapping completed.
So now we have that area, but now we need to create a channel between one area so it knows how to go to the next. So we're actually right here, I could do it 2 ways. I could create a channel over here across the driveway, or I can create a channel here. And I'm going to try creating a 2 2 channels and see if it is able to just choose whichever one is closer. So I'm going to create, and then we're going to go to the corner or wherever we want it to cross, which I'm gonna come up here, and I'm going to start mapping channel. Then we're going to drive from one area to the next, and then I can tap save.
Channel mapping completed.
And there we have a channel where it's going to go from one area to the next. Once we're done, we can hit go to charger,
Recharging.
and it's ready to mow for next time. Now next, let's talk about UltraSense AI. This is how it's automatically going to be able to see objects in front of it and move out of the way. So in the app, you have the option to turn that off. You can do the standard, or you can do a more sensitive approach to objects that are coming by. So right now, let's see how it does. Here, a bike was placed in its way. Will it actively move out of the way? It did. Perfect timing. Now we're going to go to the most difficult object here today. We are on the most sensitive mode, so it'll be interesting to see how it interacts with it. But here we have some smaller objects. There's going to be all kinds of kids' toys around my yard, so you never know what it's going to find. So let's see if it is able to see and navigate around these objects. And just like that, it sees it and moves around, leaving the toys untouched. Now, if somebody comes and walks in front of it, like me, if it doesn't see me in time, the bumper will stop it. So nice that it has both of those. Now, after some scientific testing, we saw that it had no problem with the larger objects over here, but if something was very low to the ground and smaller, it did not see them. So it's always nice to go and do a quick cleanup of the yard before you send out the robot.
Now, once we start the task, these are going to complete the job until it's done. So first, they're just going to do the pattern on the inside of the lawn. And then once it finishes that, we have the border setting on where it's then going to do 2 perimeter cuts around the edge, one as close as it can get, and then one more in until it's finished. Now, because these lawns are pretty large, it was not able to finish the lawn in the first charge. So once it reaches 15% battery level, it will then automatically come back and dock at the charging station and charge up. And then once it reaches 80%, it will go back out and finish the job. Now, one thing is that it was nighttime by the time the charge finished, but that did not stop it because these have enough sensors, has the GPS tracking, as well as a light on it to finish in the nighttime. So it went out, no problem. I had no errors or anything in the app, and it went out and did the job. Now, one of the main differences between the Mini and the Luba 2 is the amount of battery it has. So the Mini was able to run for 2 hours and 18 minutes before it went back and charged on the dock, where the Luba 2 was able to go for 3 hours and 2 minutes. So quite a bit more battery there, and then it's also bigger with the 15.7 width of cutting, and then it had a longer usage time. So it was able to do quite a bit, and then it charged. Now, total charge time for the Mini was 2 hours and 21 minutes to get up to 80%, where the Luba 2, 1 hour and 9 minutes. So this is able to charge much faster to be able to go back out and finish the lawn. So that was pretty quick on the recharge. Great to see that. And then they went out at night. The Mini had another 44 minutes to cut, and the Luba 2 had another 2 hours to cut to finish the lawn. Now, this is some crazy numbers here. The Mini, it took the Mini 183 minutes, or 3 hours and 3 minutes, to do 4,600 square feet of lawn. And then it took the Luba 2 298 minutes, or 4 hours and 58 minutes, to cover 5,888 square feet of lawn. Now, I know what you're thinking, Brett, that's a really long time, and you are right. But we did another test and the numbers changed. We'll get to that in a minute. But another thing about this is that is time that, while maybe you could have mown faster on your own, you would have also been out here, mowed, taken away time from the family. Maybe you can't get out and mow. This is able to do all of that, and it did a great job. This looks so good. The lines are perfectly straight, and we have all kinds of options to get this mowed. So those are just some really interesting numbers to start off. Now, that was at 1.6 speed. We did another test where I started this in the middle of the night, and that's one of the biggest benefits. You can have this mow at night. It is totally silent, barely a tiny hum, and it would be able to mow and not interrupt anybody. Again, we had some more people mowing over here, and it's just so loud when they bring their whole crew out. I don't like that, so I like that this is nice, quiet, no smell, and it's wonderful to have around. So I started both of them again this morning and did a second pass the opposite direction. This time I did 2.0 speed to see how fast they could do it in. And the Luba 2 was almost able to finish this entire 5,880 square foot. It just didn't finish the final border in that. And so the total time for this one this morning was 3 hours and 8 minutes. So much faster than the other one. And I think it's because of the direction. It didn't have as much confusing obstacles over on the garden here. And the Mini was able to finish. It actually took a tiny bit longer. It took 10 minutes longer for the Mini to finish at a faster rate, just because it's using a little more battery and it had a little more charge time in there. But the Mini finished in 3 hours and 13 minutes today. So really cool to see that. And that's only 2 tests. There's actually some other things that we can change. We can change how close it's getting to the last line that it just cut, so you could space those out more. That could save battery. We were able to take this in the app from a 2.5-hour cut down to an 1.5-hour cut if we have the spacing a little more. And then you can also play with the speed. The faster it cuts, you know, the not as clean as it's going to be. So if you go slower, it might need to do less passes. So there's a lot of things that you can play with, but my favorite thing about these is they can work at night, and they have plenty of sensors to watch out. Here you can see from the camera view, it looks really great. You can see that light is illuminating everything. If there was anything in the way, it would see it. And it has the bumper where if something gets in the way and it bumps, it will stop and go another way. So there are a ton of features back there. So there you go. It is able to complete the lawn, and here is how these look. So before, it had just been mowed recently just to cut it down a little bit, but now that we have the Mammotion robots mowing these, you can see the awesome patterns that are in the lawn. Everything is super crisp and clean, and now we can set this up to run every couple days so that it's always looking like this in the morning. So instead of spending Saturday and a couple hours out here to mow the lawn, we can get some other things done, spending time in the yard, going out, whatever it may be. And then the only thing is we will need to do a little bit of cleanup around the trim just to make sure that that stays nice and cut, because it can't get all the way to the edge. Just like a typical lawnmower, some areas just might be a little more than others. Now, if you're finding that there is a big area where it didn't get, you can actually go back into the mapping and you can realign a certain section of the lawn so that you can align that a little better if it's just not getting as close as you want. You don't have to remap the whole thing, you can just do that. Now, the other great thing is we can map different zones. So depending on what size you have, these support 30 different zones. So we could actually map the neighbor's lawn. We have this set up, it's here. We could have it mow on the off days, and we could have it mow the other lawn. Like, you can really have this go pretty far and mow a ton of different lawns. Now, in the app, there are a ton of different options that you have available for this. One of the things we noticed is right on the side, there was a blinking light, but we can go in here into the settings and you can turn off that side LED. So if you don't like that, here you have the auto lighting option. So if you turn this off, that means it's not going to turn on the lights at night, and it's going to be harder to be able to distinguish an animal. So for the best safety, keep that on unless there's no concern of that, maybe a fenced in yard or whatever. You could keep that light off and it still would be able to mow. You just might receive an error that the ultra sensing vision isn't working or something, but that's okay, it can still operate. Now next, you also can change how it's turning. You can do a multi-point turn, or you can change to a 0 turn. One of the really cool things about this, the way these wheels are set up makes it so it can easily do, you know, the 3-point turn, or it can just simply turn because the wheels are able to slide both ways, which are really cool. Now, another thing is when it's done mowing, you have the option where it can just instantly go straight towards the charging dock. But if you don't want the line of it going through your yard, you can set it where instead of doing a direct shot, it can do the follow the perimeter, or it goes around the border and then it goes to the charging dock. So you have the nice pattern left there. It's not going to last long with the kids at my house, but cool you have those options. Then you can also set non-working periods. So if you never want it to go off at like 5 to 10 a.m. in the morning when the sprinkler's on or something like that. You can set that, and then you can create your schedules for running throughout the day, and you don't really have to worry about them interrupting or getting in the way of each other. And then you can easily relocate the charging station, and you can also adjust the voice settings. If you want it to be a different voice or completely turn off the voice, you can do that as well. And we have a few more things in the app. Now, the speed of mowing is 2.0, but when you are driving it around the yard, you can come in here and set it all the way up to 3.9, so you can really cruise just driving it from one section of the lawn to another, not to mow. But nice that you have that option there.
Here is the Luba 2 at 3.9 feet per second. And here is the Luba Mini at 3.9 feet per second. And if you really want to, you can just use this as a remote control and manually mow wherever you want.
And then a few other things is that if you want to go and see your tasks, you can come down here to the tasks, create your tasks, set it for what it's going to do, and then you go to schedule and set it for those different intervals. So at night, this is going to get the mowing done. We wake up to a nice mowed lawn.
And here we have the lawn before the Luba Mini. And here is the lawn after the Luba Mini. And here is before the Luba 2. And here is the after.
Now, in conclusion, what is the right Luba robot for your lawn? Well, that all depends on the size of the lawn and how much you want it to be cutting a day. Now, these are rated for different sizes. So here we have 0.75 acres, and over here we have 0.37 acres. Now, that number is the amount that it could do in one full day, meaning it goes out and mows, comes back to the charging dock, charges, go back out and mow, I think all within a 24 period. So if you get the model that can go 2.5 acres, does have a little bit bigger battery, and it would be able to do that much in one day, but it is going to go back and dock and charge a few different times. Now for me, at my house, we are on like 0.19 or something like that of an acre, my entire lot. So even going with the 0.2 model of this will be plenty for me because we don't need the entire lawn mowed in one charge. It could mow the front, charge up, mow the back, and no problem. We can save a little bit of money because we don't need that giant battery. We don't need to have 100 different zones. So this model is going to give you the 20 zones. This one will give you the 30 zones. If you go up, you get up to 100 zones on the 2.5 acre model. So the Luba Mini is going to be perfect for my home where it's a little smaller, and I think it's great that it is smaller and can kind of get into some of the little areas a little bit better. Now with the Luba 2, it's going to be great for a much larger lawn like this. Now we put these on each lawn, but this Luba 2 is able to take care of both of these lawns all in one day. It's going to be able to cover all half acre here without needing to have two mowers on one lawn. This will do one. It could almost finish the bigger area, can charge up and then finish the other area. And then, like I said before, there's other options we can change where we can adjust the cutting width between where it cut before and kind of totally customize this to be the best that we like it to be for our lawn. The settings that I showed today aren't all that there is. There's a lot you can do and play with to get it to work the best for you. But overall, I think these are the two best robot lawn mowers you can get right now. I love everything about them, from being able to navigate to having the night vision. That was so cool working at night. One of my main concerns today was if the antenna would be effective if we did put it closer to the house. We did only have one issue, and I just think that was a mapping issue. Retried it, the antenna worked fine, and it was able to go and still be accurate all the way up to the front, to the back. Everything worked great. If you are trying to do multiple lawns with one robot, you may need to have it be in a more open area, but we always had a good signal. We only saw one like little orange icon that said the signal was floating at times, but again, no issues with that. So I think these are going to perform great. And like I said, they have tons of features. They are able to do everything that I need them to do in my yard. So just depending on the size of the yard, either of these are going to be a great option for your home. If you have any further questions about the Luba Mini or the Luba 2 all-wheel drives, please let me know down in the comments below. And if you want to pick yours up today, make sure you check out the link down below. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.
Good job, buddy. Good job. You've been working so hard out there. Here you go. Here's your scratches. Good job.